The EBCare Registry is a patient-reported database. So the idea is that it gives the opportunity for people eventually all over the world to be able to register with the database and provide really very helpful data that we're going to need as we move towards developing various therapies and getting them to market. The database is a collaborative venture between DEBRA, so DEBRA International and DEBRA of America, and Lotus Tissue Repair, who are funding the project and who are at the same time developing plans to try and develop protein therapy for dystrophic EB. So what we need to know from the register data is two things. One, it will help us understand much better that the shorthand term is the natural history of the condition, but essentially what that means is what's the sort of natural course of different types of EB throughout life. And this register, which will give a snapshot when people complete it, but we will come back and update it, or ask people to update it in regular intervals, will give us a much clearer idea of what sort of events there are in the lives of people with EB in terms of their health state. That's going to be very useful because it will help us when we're devising clinical trials to have very, we hope, much more robust measures of whether something has had an effect or not, that it's not just chance or would have happened anyway. Equally importantly, it will help us understand what the costs are to national healthcare systems of maintaining people with EB with the sort of current treatments. If we're able to say in the UK, in France, in the US, that at the moment it costs between X and Y for people with recessive dystrophic EB or dominant dystrophic or other types of EB, then when we're looking at what the cost of any new therapy is, we're able to argue on the basis, well, this is what the therapy would cost, but this is what it's already costing you. And in some cases, there may be trade-offs. You might not have existing costs if, a therapy is more effective. So it's really very important that we get this data. It covers all types of EB. The interests of Lotus, who are funding this for us, is in dystrophic EB. So they're very keen that we get as many people as possible with dystrophic EB on the register. But we as DEBRA are concerned with all types of EB, so we're equally interested in EB simplex, junctional EB, Kindler syndrome. So really anyone with EB who has EB themselves or a parent of a child with EB, we really want them to register. One of the helpful things about the register, EBCare.org, is that you don't have to complete it all at once. It's not terribly daunting, but in order to get the sort of level and the depth of data that we want, it doesn't necessarily go on to several pages. Will take some time to complete. What we'd like people to do is to sort of start the process off by registering, completing their basic data. So who they are, what type of EB they've got, that sort of thing. And then, maybe on a bit-by-bit basis, start to complete the other sections. One thing that would be very valuable, even just people filling in the identifiers and just saying, here we are, is that it will help us understand a bit more about the number of people with different types of EB. At the moment, it's really estimates based on various epidemiological surveys that have taken place. But this will give us, we hope, more robust data. And again, that of course is important when we're trying to encourage pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies to get involved in EB research, that if we can give them a good idea of the size of the market, then we're much more likely to be able to get them to have an interest. It can be filled in bite-sized pieces, but the important thing is to make that first step and register.